Now it's time for the Tim McNeil on the Hill segment, and this is all about my man Tim McNeil, and he is our political correspondent up in Washington, D.C., and we got to get into this discussion here tonight about what Hillary Rosen of CNN said today in support of the president. It was more of an analysis of the president's performance, and it was sort of alarming and important because it was counter to sort of the way the waves are rolling right now relative to how the media is portraying President Obama and his success thus far. So we're going to jump right into that. Big Tim, how are you doing?
Doing good, Ken.
Good, and as always, our listeners are interested in knowing where you are. You travel so much. Are you up in the Washington, D.C. area tonight, or are you somewhere else?
Well, my wife is happy that I am home, and I am in the D.C. area.
Oh, good. Well, fantastic. I don't know whether or not you had an opportunity to see the or read or hear the story on CNN today relative to Hillary Rosen's comments.
I did get a chance to read it, and it was directly on point, and I think that we'll begin seeing a lot more of these type of commentaries coming from Democratic talking points.
Well, you know what, Tim? We talked about this. Mac, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, how the president seemed to, we kind of laughed at it. We said he seemed to be laying in the cut.
Right.
And just waiting and letting all this criticism and negative energy get out there, and then you have an opportunity to respond to it and, and come back with some facts and say, hey, listen, let's be real now. This is the true situation. And I think that's what we might be seeing here in the near future. But I wanted to get into this, Tim, and talk about each of these individual talking points relative to what Ms. Rosen discussed, because her opinion, and I don't know if you have the same opinion, Tim, is that it took the Republicans 8 years to get us into this mess. How can you expect the president to get us out of it in 2 years?
Absolutely. I think that has been a challenge for the administration from the beginning. Unfortunately, a lot of people have some unrealistic expectations on what President Obama could do once he got in office. I mean, people thought that the heavens were going to open, the man walked in office, and all their problems were going to be solved. But as you said, it took 8 years to get us into this mess. He just can't fix everything in 1 year. It's impossible.
Well, let's talk about a couple of her particular talking points here. She first mentioned that, if jobs are the issue, that we have to understand that before jobs can be created, you have to fix the economy first, and the economy was an absolute mess after 8 years of Republican control. Do you agree with that assertion, or do you disagree? You think that's a valid talking point for the Democrats?
That's an absolute valid talking point, and we have not heard enough of that as of late. As you said, the talk has all been about jobs, but they failed to remember that big business, small businesses were closing shop, going under, stopped hiring because they had no access to credit. The economy went in the tank. There was no money. So therefore, businesses could not hire. Then the jobless rate went up. Until that's fixed, then there will be no long-term job creation. There may be some things that they can do to create some temporary jobs, but that's not going to make the economy fix, and you're not going to get everyone back to long-term employment.
If we can foil that against what Republicans are saying, Obama's even said before in the past that the Republicans want to spend $700 billion to give $100 billion in tax cuts. So it's backwards. I mean, you can't just always look to a tax break to be the reason why people are going to perform well in their jobs or create jobs or do any of that. You're 100% right. It's got to be the economy and the stability of the markets and credit being able to flow.
Well, and Hillary Rosen in her article, she made a very good point that Wall Street, despite what's going on, Wall Street and the banks are still doing very well. Their profit levels are very high. Yeah. So just giving a tax break to those who already have clearly is not solving the problem.
Right, right. And I think now, and I don't want to stop with that issue there. We may talk about it a little bit later, but the banks have some profound profitability now. And I think one of the key issues that Hillary Rosen brought up was, hey, look, now that you all have all that money now, you're no longer in a crisis. You're very, very profitable now, maybe even more profitable than you've been over the last 10 years, believe it or not, after this banking crisis we've had. What are you going to do with the money? Are you going to start lending money so that small businesses can flourish and get access to credit? Or are you going to hoard the money and keep it and line your pockets? I think that's the big question that Ms. Rosen asked in this report here.
And the more that message comes out, the more public sentiment will begin to change, and they will recognize that some of our anger may need to be directed towards Wall Street and the bankers who have gotten all of these benefits from TARP and other incentives, and now they're sitting on it, and they still won't lend. They won't refinance a lot of these homes and houses that are underwater. Although the programs are there, they'd rather just sit and fatten their profit sheet.
And don't you think it's really interesting that the Republicans can get up there and say it's an Obama political issue versus, no, there's a real issue in our economy. And if you look at the history of what's been said in the media from President Obama and the White House is, look, there are real problems in this country with business, with lending, i.e. banks or whatever else is going on. We're trying to address real problems, not talk about political, party issues. And I just
that goes back to the message.
Yeah,
everyone in the Democratic Party's got to stay on message, pushing that point home until it becomes a drumbeat, and then the community will get behind it.